5 of them. So
Five
that
of
means
10.
5 out of 10 in a nation of 36 states. Rivers State has produced
50%.
50% of the excellent children who have come out in this country. Now, if you were to look at your school, what is it they teach you there that makes it such that you're able to come and not only to speak your mind and express an analysis like Ona has just done, and then to also write it well as well? What is it they teach you there?
Well, there's a subject, literature, English literature, actually. They teach us about, let's say, our hometown, our homeland, about environment, about River State, actually, or beyond Africa. And they give us that space of expressing ourselves, expressing our views, to like put it down on the paper. They normally ask us to express our views about what we think about the society. Put it down to see our opinions about what is going on, and like try to guide us with advices, or try to, opinions that are wrong, or as in when we have those wrong impressions about things going in the society, we try to guide us well. And Things Fall Apart is actually recommended. Nowadays, as in this present time, it's seen as an ancient book, as in a book that is not supposed to be read, as in it's out of date.
When was it? When did you read that book? When did you read Things Fall Apart? The first time you picked it up, how long ago was that?
That was
this year, last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Let's say 2011.
That was the first time you picked it up and you read it.
Yes.
How old are you now?
I'm 14 years old.
So you were 12 years old the first time you pick up Things Fall Apart. And you understood everything in there?
Not really everything.
Okay.
I just understood it as a story back then. But I met my older sister and she really put me through the book. And
was that when you were going to take part in this competition?
Yes.
Also, you picked up the book again and asked for explanation now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now,
to put that in perspective, Ona is actually 12. Ona is the youngest of all the competitors. So the youngest of all of them. She's 12 years old. So, I mean...
How old are you, Eniola?
I'm 15 years old.
You're 15 years old. You're 14 and you're 12. Okay. Now, Ona is 12. Kole, you being in the forefront of driving a station like Channels towards saying we've got to encourage people to pick up books. And you've interacted with a lot of young people as a result of this and in your past life, as they say. Do you think we have the quality of kids their age who will be the future of our literary world? Do you think so? Do you have that feeling?
There's absolutely no doubt about that. Absolutely no doubt. I was fighting off, tears a few minutes ago when they were talking, because for me it's so moving. There's so much bad news coming from the country. So much. Our politicians are so disappointing, to say the very least. But when you look at the kids that we have in the country, there is so much potential in Nigeria. These kids are bright. They are full of life, full of talents, incredible talents. On the show, we've interviewed a 9-year-old author. We've interviewed 3 11-year-old authors. They didn't write junk. They wrote very well. We've interviewed a 5-year-old author in Port Harcourt who wrote a book.
Are they all coming from River State?
Yeah. So there is something about River State.
Definitely something about River State. But I mean, we have gifted children in Nigeria. If we wake up and develop this talent, Nigeria will never remain the way it is. We have a responsibility to get this country right because of these kids, because they can take on anybody else from anywhere else in the world. Reading the essays, not just the essays. I had extra privileges that the judges didn't have, because I was doing all the calls. When the entries were coming in, I was doing all the preliminary calls. So talking to them over the phone, there was an 11-year-old kid who wrote from Niger State. When I read the essay, I saw the age. I said, no way. Niger State, with all due respect. So I picked up the phone, I called.
Do you remember his
said,
name? Because I remember we tried to get him to come.
Abdul Kader. I've forgotten the full name. Yes. So I picked up the phone, I called. The mother picked up the phone. I said, your son sent an entry. He did very well. He didn't make the top 10, but the judges were so impressed because of his age. They wanted to give him a wild card entry, to come in. So I said, I'd like to speak to him. And the mother said, okay, hold on. Gave the boy the phone. When he spoke on the phone, I said, what? He was so intelligent. He was so bright on the phone. I was absolutely convinced that, yeah, he truly deserved to come. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it, despite the efforts channels made to, to bring him and his dad or mom down and all that. So, incredible kids. Yeah,
but Kunle, just look a bit ahead. University education for these bright kids you're talking about. I'd like your comment on that.
Oh no.
I'm sorry to have to ask this question.
It's sad. No, it's really sad what we are doing in Nigeria. It's really, really sad.
I'll say we are heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. We are not thinking. We're not thinking. You don't develop a country by messing up knowledge production institutions.
Yeah.
You don't do that. You don't do that. There's no reason for our kids to be at home, our young adults to be at home for over 2 months. It doesn't make sense. For a country that wants to grow, for a country that wants to become one of the top 20 in the world, we don't mess up. If you look at it's not just the universities. I've gone around public libraries in Nigeria, in some places in Nigeria. Lagos has 11 public libraries. I don't want to mention the budgets for public libraries here. I don't think it's appropriate to do that. But the libraries are in a mess. The libraries all over the country, public libraries, are in a mess. We're not investing in the libraries. Go to the National Library. It's a mess. If you look at knowledge production institutions in the country, you will go to NCC.
Kunle, there are computers. We can Google anything. We can get e-books. So what do we need physical library? What do we need physical books for?
Oh, there's still a place for physical books. I mean, all over the world, generally. But
I have a huge library of my own.
More fundamentally is the culture of respecting knowledge, the culture of promoting education, the culture
respecting books. When I was in secondary school, I was taught you never abuse your book. Your name is written only on the first page. You open the cover. Your name is on that first page, not, how people write
on the edges.
On the edges, you didn't do that in my school. It was abuse of a book.
That was respect.
You respected your books.
Yeah. Eniola's mom told me when I spoke to her after the competition. She told me that she encourages her kids to read a book a week, or maybe I don't know, but that's generally. She says she encourages them to read books regularly, and she couldn't have written that essay if she hadn't developed a culture for reading. So you don't write well if you don't read well. Yeah. It's not possible.
Yeah.
And the same thing. Honor is 12 years old. If she didn't develop the culture for reading, she couldn't have written that. The same thing with God's Favor. The same thing with all the other kids who competed. But what are we doing as a country to ensure that these talents grow? If they go into Nigerian universities, how are they going to turn up? The best lecturers are out of the country. They are not there. Those who are left are frustrated. They are not motivated. They are not inspired. The libraries and the universities are a mess. There are no e-libraries I just mentioned now. The world is going e. There are no e-libraries, in our universities and all that. So how do we want to produce the kind of people who we can position in the various sectors, who can now get things right in the country? It's not possible.
Okay, we have to wrap up now, and I will start with the person that I started with earlier. I'll start with you. Let me start with you, God's Favor. As a final word, what would you be saying to your peers, to your age mates, to people who are younger than you in terms of reading culture? You've read how many books would you say you've ever read? Can you even count now? You can't remember?
I've read quite a number of books.
Okay, now what would you be saying to them? If you can't remember the number of books you must have read, I guess you don't take tallies. Oh, I read 10. Oh, he's now 25. But
You just read.
you just read. So if you can't remember that, now, what would you be saying to people your age about reading? What does it do for you?
Okay, thank you very much. It expands your knowledge, your reading culture. It gives you more vocabs. I think if it were to be somebody that doesn't know how to read or that don't read, that person will not be as so confident to talk. Nobody knows the tomorrow's president. Nobody knows who's gonna stand in front of a country being announced as a president. I think I would advise them to keep reading, to take them places. Like I say, I never knew I would be, if I was to be told a few years back that I'll be in it
On Channels
TV, talking like this without reading. I think I would have had doubts about it.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Maybe next governor in years to come in
never
River
know.
State. Now, Honor, what will be your message to people your age as far as reading is concerned?
Reading should be a culture, a habit we should try to develop, because without reading, our minds are blank. We have nothing to offer because you can't give what you don't have.
True.
So you have to have something in your brain, in your mind, to be able to give out things to people. You need to learn how to read and respect books very much. Some people prefer watching movies to reading books. There are some books that have their movies, and people prefer to watch those movies rather than read. But reading is the best thing you should try to do as a student. As students, we should try to read, because when we grow up, most of the times we don't really have that much time to read. When we do, we should, as students now, that is our only obligation. We don't pay our school fees. Our parents do that for us. So we shouldn't waste their money and their income.
Here.
Well said. Well said. Finish what you were going to say. You wanted to finish, yes.
We shouldn't waste their money on things that aren't important. We should read and make them proud.
Okay.
Well
That's very
said,
good.
Honor. That's the only thing they pay your school fees to do, for you to go there and read.
Yes. Now, Eniola, your final word. From here on, you'll be going to Frankfurt in Germany to attend World Book Fair Festival. Is it fair or
Frankfurt Book Fair?
Book
I'm
Fair?
envious,
Okay. Yes.
Eniola.
Now, you're going to Frankfurt. You're going to Germany next month, or is it in November?
Next month, yes.
You'll be going to Germany. Your final word, what is the thing you'll be looking and aspiring to do from here on, having tasted what it is like to have a competition of this nature that will take you abroad? And from what Kunle said, you're going to be meeting some of the best authors all around the world. So what's the next thing for you now?
Well, I'll definitely be reading more books.
Yeah,
You're encouraged now.
we got you here.
Because I believe that knowledge is power, and if there's one thing I've learned from this competition is that no knowledge is ever wasted. So I feel that we should continue reading. It's about time that the sleeping giant of Africa should awaken. It's a time where we need to revive our reading culture. So I'll definitely be reading more books. Perhaps maybe in a couple years' time, I'll even write my own book. God on my side.
You never know.
Yeah. Well done. So, Kunle, your final word now. Having done all of this, having seen this happen, and I know it's been a very emotional trip for you and for the team that's been backing you on this. What's your final word?
Well, it's to the adults, in Nigeria, the leaders. Let's invest in our kids. Let's invest in developing a reading culture. It's very important. If we do that, then we have a chance of unleashing the enormous potential that Nigeria possesses. If we don't do that, we will breed a generation of people who lack intellectual depth. And when you have intellectual depth, there's no way you can come up with the policies and the ideas and the inventions required to develop a country. There's just no way. So let's get busy developing a reading culture, and let's read ourselves, we adults and the leaders in the country, so that we can begin to think right and get things right.
Okay, thank you very much. So on that note, we will have to wrap up the segment, and I want to say thank you very much, Olakunle Kasumu, the co-producer and presenter of Channel's Book Club, and the one that's being the driving engine for the Prize for Literature. Thank you very much for coming as well, Ona Charles Obaze. Thanks for coming. You came second in the competition. And then on this side, just sitting next to me, Eniola Oladipo, the winner of the Channel's Book Club Prize for Literature. Congratulations once again.
Thank you so much.
And then thanks to you, God's favor. Nah, great to have you here.
Thank you, sir.
Well, that's been quite an experience. I wish this will not end quickly, because there's still so many questions I want to ask these young people.
You have to hold your questions, don't you?
Yes, we have to. So on that note, we will take a short break now. When we come back, we'll have another very interesting conversation going on the program Sunrise. Don't go away.